region, leading to the death of one person. We would update you on that shortly. And later in the bulletin, Minerals Commission defends the decision by Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Kofi, to revoke the mining rights of Akango, Salman and nkroful mining of Adamus Resources Limited. All of this and more coming up within the next 1 hour. We have business and sports also at the tail end of the show. Do let us know what you make of the many stories we have for you this evening. But before that, let's bring you some news summaries with Grace Hamwa Ajiman. Hello, Grace.
Hi, Martin. Let's begin from the road sector because the roads minister, Gavin Kwame Agbuja, has disclosed that about 5,000 contractors have registered with the ministry to participate in the government's Big Push Road Infrastructure Initiative. According to the minister, the large number of registered contractors demonstrate strong interest in supporting the government's efforts to improve road infrastructure across the country. He emphasized that contractors awarded projects must deliver efficiently or risk termination. And the Greater Accra Markets Association, GAMA, has urged the public to continue accepting coins in daily transactions, warning that their rejection is contributing to rising prices of goods and services. According to the association, the continued referral of small denomination coins is creating difficulties in giving change, a situation it believes is forcing traders to adjust prices upwards. And before I go, the Supreme Court has awarded 800,000 Ghana cedis in compensation to Yao Apia, a bar owner who was wrongfully convicted and spent nearly 2 decades in prison for robbery in a landmark ruling addressing wrongful conviction and prolonged imprisonment. The Apex Court, presided over by Justice Avril Lovelace Johnson, delivered the decision on Friday, on February 10 this year, after finding that Apia had suffered a miscarriage of justice following his conviction and 45-year sentence in 2011. That's it for the summary, Martin.
Thank you very much, Grace. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. We're also starting from the energy sector, and the Minister in charge of Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, has assured Ghanaians of transparency and regular updates as the country continues to grapple with electricity supply challenges following the recent disruption at the Akosombo Hydroelectric Power Station. Recent erratic supply situation in the country has sparked complaints and frustrations from energy consumers, with some asking for a load shedding timetable or schedule to help with planning. Addressing the press on the 27th of April, which is today, the minister indicated that government is committed and determined to solve the power challenges. Let's listen to Dr. John Jinapor, who addressed the media a few minutes ago.
As minister responsible for the energy sector, my foremost desire and objective is to ensure that every Ghanaian and every part of our country enjoys a stable, reliable, and uninterruptible power supply for economic activity and social activity. This has been the focus of our effort since assuming office, and we have not relented on that effort. This unfortunate and unprecedented disaster, which I have never witnessed, has resulted in the temporary curtailment of power from our largest generation source, the Akosombo Dam, leading to severe power challenges not witnessed in recent times. Let me state, and I state humbly, to all those affected by this situation, I wish to assure you that I deeply empathize with you and I share your frustration and discomfort in this trying moment. We never anticipated this. We never saw it coming. We've never witnessed it. It's challenging, but we would rise above this challenge. Let me assure you that government, working through all relevant sector agencies, have responded with urgency and coordination. Our engineers have since remained on site. Some of them have stayed there for 3 continuous days without leaving site, working around the clock under very, very extreme and difficult conditions to restore operations. It has been hard work. It has been determination. When I visited the dam site and received a briefing, it was very challenging. Others thought that it was not going to be possible. But I'm pleased to inform you today.
The minister in charge of Energy and Green Transition, Dr. John Jinapor, also stressed the need for government commitment to honestly communicate the state of the power situation to Ghanaians and to power consumers, insisting that authorities will not downplay the impact of the incident.
On behalf of government and on behalf of the good people of Ghana, I wish to seize this opportunity to commend and salute our engineers and technical teams who have remained on site, working tirelessly under extremely difficult conditions to restore the system to full operation. Let me tell you that your dedication, your professionalism, and unwavering commitment in the face of these daunting challenges and situation is truly, truly commendable. I salute you, I thank you, I commend you, and I'm immensely proud of what you've achieved so far. Given the situation, I've also directed the MD for the Electricity Company of Ghana to provide regular and timely updates to the public on areas that will be affected. We will not shirk responsibility. We will not deceive you. When I briefed the president told me to be honest and transparent. Yes, this unfortunate incident leaves a gap, and so it will affect some people. And so ECG, under the management of Engineer Julius Pekman, have been publishing regional updates. And in collaboration with the Ministry of Information, we're even going to make it more available for everybody to see what is happening. But because it is fluid, because it's not like the regular load shedding, where you are aware that for a foreseeable period of time, you cannot restore power, we cannot do weekly publications. In fact, engineers are working around the clock. Within this week, they are pushing to restore all the plants back online. And so we can only provide you with a very short interval period. Indeed, this morning, we published a schedule for 6 o'clock to 6 p.m. That's 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. This afternoon, they've had to review it because one more plant is come on with about 140 megawatt. And so we would not live in denial. When we face challenges, we will tell Ghanaians. We know that, like me, every Ghanaian wants to enjoy uninterruptible supply of power. But I also do know that Ghanaians also appreciate it when we have genuine challenges that is not caused by policy failure or intentional. We'll be honest with you, but we'll also tell you what we are doing to address the situation. And we have since been doing that right from the day I visited the plant and all the periodic updates that we've been providing.
So that is John Jinapor, a doctor, who is Ghana's minister in charge of energy and green transition. He spoke to the media by extension, telling the entirety of Ghanaians what the current challenge is. One other key issue he touched on was the suspension of the GRIDCO CEO, whom we are told has not been sacked, and is not on leave, but has just been told to step aside for investigations to, take place while they try to get to the bottom of some allegations and challenges that the GRIDCO is facing, which is part of the power value chain. Still on the power issues, though, many of you have been sharing your thoughts and the kind of experience you're having, and that's what the minister sought to explain. Meanwhile, the minority is asking for a reliable load shedding timetable in the wake of the power outages in parts of the country, urging government to admit there is a crisis that goes beyond the Akosombo fire incident. The group has also questioned the suspension of the GRIDCO chief executive and the shake-up in ECG's Ashanti region leadership. Deputy ranking on the Energy Committee, Collins Adomaku-Mensah, says consumers need adequate and regular updates on the power situation and not mere rhetoric from government communicators.
What is out of the norm is the rhetoric. What has happened in Akosombo, very unfortunate, has rather exacerbated the situation on the ground. But as to the power situation over the last 1 month, I'm not too sure we can attribute it solely to the fire outbreak in Akosombo. As I said, obviously, I was in my constituency 3 weeks ago, and for the past 3 days that I spent there, the lights were off. I'm not too sure that can be attributed to that of the Akosombo Dam. Of course, what has happened in Akosombo is very, very unfortunate. I'm not too sure if anybody anticipated that we are going to have this fire. Taking off about 100 megawatts off your grid is quite a significant number. And I'm sure that everybody on the basis of this should expect some outages here and there. But that will also mean that government must come clean and accept that there are challenges and get us a timetable so everybody is comfortable. I remember when Dr. Matthew Poko Prepe said, "Oh, you do CC," and that some of the transformers, some of the wires had to be changed. He did not take it lightly. He did not understand why that should lead to some power outages. I'm not too sure if Ghanaians will be prepared to listen to him with the same reason at this particular point in time. Mr. Asiedu-Dartey, the national chairman of the party, said, if you are repairing a transformer on the right, why should left go off? That's how low they trivialize the situation. Today, here we are. There are genuine reasons, genuine concerns, but people are finding it very difficult to accept.
Now you had Collins Adomako Mensah, who also described the reshuffle in ECG's Ashanti region leadership and the directive for the GridCo chief executive to step aside as politically motivated. He is quick to add that past utterances by some officers of the current government are biting them now.
What is out of the norm is the rhetoric from other government communicators that he was appointed during the SWAL government, so he's a saboteur and that is sabotaging the system. Those in Kumasi, the managers have been reassigned, especially when the chairman of the NDs in the Ashanti region, just 2 weeks ago, gave an instructions to the Minister of Energy to reshuffle the managers in ECG in Kumasi with the intention that, with the notion that he feels that they are sabotaging the system. That is where I have a challenge. If we politicize the issue, then it becomes a challenge. If it's a on pure technical grounds, I don't think anybody will have an issue with it. But it's not out of the norm to have a CEO step aside for an investigation to be carried out in order not for the person to interfere in the whole process.
And you had the ranking member on Parliament committee when it comes to energy. That's Deputy Ranking Member on Energy Committee, Collins Adomako Mensah there. So what exactly is the situation? Meanwhile, the erratic power situation in Koforidua is also hitting micro enterprises hard, cutting into sales and daily income. In a moment, we'll get an update from the region when our correspondent joins us for a quick info on how they are also managing with the situation. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. You can also let us know how the power situation is impacting either your life or your business. If you go to our Facebook stream and our YouTube stream, would be grateful to you to let us know what your experience has been regarding this current situation regarding the power outages. Government has sought to explain why it is such a challenge and how this is even affecting not just your individual lives but businesses and situations around you. You can also send us your thoughts on it. But before we go to the phone lines now, let's listen to Yvonne Nikwe, who has been interacting with some affected business owners in the eastern region about how the power situation is impacting their lives. Let's listen to her.
Across the eastern region, electricity supply has become unreliable. Power can go off and return unexpectedly, making it difficult for businesses to plan their activities. Micro enterprises are already feeling the impact as they struggle with declining customer numbers and reduced sales. Chantal Ofori Asante, a hairdresser in Koforidua, says the erratic power supply is affecting her work and driving customers away.
Oh, light in a high because me anytime. I
am losing customers because whenever the light goes off, my customers don't come here. The light will go off at 12, 10, in the morning at 6 a.m. That is not a good time for my business.
Anytime to me do no, and a higher no. Tejumano, it's me say because the Ejuman light near the Ejuma. So moon near being found my. I bet me be a Ejuma.
Grace Owusu, who runs a water business, says the outages lead to income losses.
Say, no mudumuna, means me town dear sir. A dume or semi pong, and me kofi, and say, can you me soon and wammy? And I was sent to me do fridge, you know. Go on a new year, and so send me Janice.
The more water I sell, the more income I get. But if the light goes off, I'm unable to sell cool water for my customers. Means that my daily livelihood will be affected.
We are crying, saying, "Shouldn't you meet me in tones you?"
Well, so those are some of the traders in and around the market areas in Koforidua, speaking to our colleague Yvonne Nikwe, also telling us about the kind of impact that the power outage is having on them. Let's speak to Senior Research and Policy Analyst at IES, Derek Emmanuel. Good evening. Thank you for joining us, Mr.
Good evening.
I'm sure Hacha is the surname, right?
Yes, please. It's Derek Emmanuel.
Okay, great. So I'm sure you followed what the minister said regarding responses they gave to a lot of questions many Ghanaians have about the power situation. As an analyst in the sector, how did you receive these kinds of assurances and answers from the minister?
All right. Thanks for the opportunity once again. So the minister's press conference, was more or less provides a timely and then a necessary update regarding the recent power outages. And then the acknowledgement of the causes marks an important shift when it comes to the transparency, because this is an important element when it comes to the management of technical and then the public, provide some public confidences. And so, in the nutshell, what he has provided is reassuring. The donation also shows somebody who is more sympathized with, let me say, the consumers, and then is more or less come to reality with what we are all experiencing. It also provides an update as to what is also doing to be able to alleviate the burdens that we are all experiencing. And everything shows that it is more reassuring. But more or less, we must also commend the technical department, those who are working on how to restore power. I believe what they've been able to do within the past few days is very commendable. They need to be applauded. It also shows that we also have the local competency.
You have just 1 minute.
Well, that is what you usually get when you have a challenge with your phone. But yeah, Hache, kindly stay with us. We'll try and reconnect with you so that you can further explain from the technical point of view or the policy point of view what you make of the responses that the government has given regarding the power outage or the power situation in the country. Again, we know that there are specific situations like what happened in Akosombo and also what's happening in the Ashanti region. We also have what's happening in the Greater Accra region. Although there are linkages, we've heard different perspectives of it and different angles being expressed or shared as about what the situation is and the solutions being proffered. You'd also recall that some transformer upgrades or transformer change is happening in many parts of the capital. Not just the capital. We are told by the minister that it's going to be nationwide. So transformers are being changed, obsolete equipment are being upgraded. We'll have all of that conversation later. But fortunately, we are joined by Emmanuel again. So you were giving us a breakdown of your understanding of what the minister said as responses to the concerns. Kindly go on.
Yeah, Martin. So I don't know where I got lost, but to restart, what I was trying to say is that in a nutshell, the press release, or let me say the press conference, the donation was more reassuring to broadly. It was more reassuring to all consumers to know that the government or the minister is providing an update. But it also reveals some deeper crisis that we had, and then we have to solve it. Just because there are some structural realities regarding our power sector. If you look at it, just one whole plant going off, and then we are more or less in a deeper crisis. To have the whole of the Akosombo enclave going off, which is about 1,000 megawatts, that is about 25% of our peak demand. And so to have that one off and then the whole country is coming to more or less a standstill, it shows that we have a serious vulnerability or a structural deficit in our system. And there must be some sort of resilience when going forward so that we can be able to have some buffers so that when we even meet such crisis, there can be a way to turn around things. But just that we've mentioned that we must also commend the technical and the engineers who are working on the power restoration, because to be able to face this vulnerability and to be able to restore power, currently about a third unit is coming on board out of 5. That is quite significant. We just hope that within the course of the week they'll be able to restore power. These are significant things that must be done. There must be a system resilience and a reliability going forward. The other update that the minister also provided regarding the transformer replacement is a good thing. If you look at it, some of the transformers are over 20 years. That is over 2 decades. And so, at the time that these transformers were installed, I'm not sure they anticipated that it could last over 20 years or more to be able to withstand the kind of load that it's supposed to take. Even, let me give you a classical example. Even normal phones that we use, we do have a memory size. With time, we upgrade the memory size and code to be able to match our demand. But currently, these transformers, there hasn't been any significant upgrades with most of them. So some of them are obsolete. But there is always a negative political connotation when it comes to doom so or power outages. And so whoever that is a government will want to spin it or spin the narrative to be able to suit whatever thing that they want. But to be able to admit that our system cannot be able to evacuate the whole power, we have obsolete system, we have a system vulnerability, and then there's a need for us to upgrade the transformers. Is the first point to be able to admit that this is the crisis we are facing. Going forward, let us see what will be the improvement if these whole transformers are brought on board. I'm sure we'll all be happy with it, but there must be a clear communication for consumers to be able to understand what we and then where we find ourselves.
The bit about the continuous communication came up, and the minister, when some are asking for a schedule or a timetable so it can help them plan, but the answer we got from the minister was that the current situation is too erratic to be able to come up with a timetable or a schedule for it. How does that answer sit with you? Technically, he says that they are working around the clock to restore to fix the challenge, but they cannot say it will go up between this time and that time, at least as we speak. What do you make of that answer?
All right. So, as somebody who understands the sector, I also want to agree with him. Now, let me explain it from this angle. What we are experiencing more or less, somebody says it's a force majeure. It is something that nobody planned or anticipated for. Before this force majeure, we were able to meet our peak demand. If I say peak demand, it means that when all the lights and everything is turned on, we have a generational capacity to be able to meet it. Yes, it is. We've been able to meet our peak demand for the past months, and we have enough dependable capacity. What it means is that if all our thermal plants, our hydro, renewables are all brought on board, every Ghanaian will be able to enjoy stable power supply. And so what we have as it stands right now, that will not warrant for us to have a timetable, is because this force majeure, which is about 1,000 megawatts, almost the third unit is almost brought on board. And so we do not have 1,000 megawatts deficit anymore. It is more or less moving around 500 megawatts. By the close of the week, there can be a full restoration of power. Now, what we need to experience is the transformer upgrade. For the transformer upgrade, you need to give the people notice. That is not load shedding. Load shedding is where you are not able to meet your peak demand. But to have a clear and a proper communication, you need to let those areas that will be affected about the transformer upgrade, such enclaves, and those who depend on that particular transformer, there needs to be a communication with them. Now, if there needs to be an upgrade, can it be done at a time that it will not be maybe peak demand? Because our peak demand is always in the night. That is from 7 to 10 going. And so is there a way where if everybody is more or less at work and then there is a less pressure on the system, we can be able to have that transformer upgrade so the engineers can work around the clock so that before 6 p.m. there can be that system where it can carry the power to the consumer. I'm sure that will be the clearer and a better communication. But be as it may, the shortest time is not a load shedding timetable. Whoever that is affected by these 1,000 megawatts, which is not across the country, there must be a clear communication for them to be aware, and then an upgrade on how the restoration is being done, as it has been provided today. Other than that, if not today, we would have all been thinking that we are still in a deficit of about 1,000 megawatts. But right now, we are around a deficit between 500 megawatts, which it means that by the close of the week, there can be a full restoration. Regarding the localized ones, which is a transformer, I'm sure there will be a better communication, but not a load shedding timetable.
Right. And finally, now that that is going to be a challenge and we are unable to properly plan individually and even as companies that depend heavily on power, what kind of advice would you give, and how can we all, not necessarily assist government, but how can we manage in the time being while the solution is being found to the problem?
All right. And so how we can more or less all progress is the first step is for the consumer to be clearly and properly informed. The consumer, it is not the consumer's fault that today we are having power outages. Whoever that needs to ensure that proper supervision and then that proper coordination is what has resulted in this. And then the kind of policy reforms that needed to have been taken long ago and have not been taken. That is what has brought us all this far. Now the consumer is of no fault. They are ready to pay for every power that is being generated or every power that they consume, and they are not able to get the power today. We, as a policy, let me say government, is supposed to communicate to the consumer, let the consumer be aware, sympathize with the consumer, and let the consumer have some respite that going forward, I am taking this bold and necessary action so that tomorrow we can all have a better, stable system. And liken it just to what is happening that across the country, we are having road construction everywhere. That is a significant moment that it will not be comfortable or convenient for every consumer. But the understanding is that when this thing is done within this time lapse, after a period of time, we can all continue to have a good road that we'll be able to use for our businesses. Just like the same thing must be applied in the power sector. Whoever that is in charge, that is the policymakers, the government officials and co, continue to sympathize with the ordinary consumer. Let them know that you are taking this necessary action for the consumer's benefits tomorrow. We do not want to just manage it and play around it so that tomorrow we get hit with the same thing. It's because we've not been transparent and then truthful with the consumer all this while. That is the main reason why when you tell them that you are even doing an upgrade, they do not want to accept it. If you tell them you have a technical fault, they don't want to accept it because we've always been able to play politics with the power sector, which is the so that we've all been experiencing. So let us be clear with the consumer. And I'm sure consumers, when they get a proper communication and a timeline as to when this problem will even be fixed, they will be more confident with the system, and going forward, they'll be able to bear with government.
Right. And finally, there's this other aspect of the conversation, which is the old machinery and equipment that we have all depended on for the last few years, probably 2 decades and more. Our biggest source of power was the Akosombo Dam. Then a few years ago, we introduced thermal along the way, which is, more expensive than the hydro. There are other conversations about solar, wind, etc. But generally, as a country, where do you think we should prioritize sourcing our power from? Should it still be hydro largely, or now we need to look at thermal and bear the cost that comes with it because of at least its consistency? Even that could change following global developments. But as an analyst, what kind of advice would you give as a country going forward so we don't politicize the challenges we face when it comes to power and then be more realistic in solving it?
All right. So the truthful answer that I can give is that we cannot have a one-sided dependency. There must be a generation mix. If I say generation mix, you must be able to have or make use of all your available resources. So one, we have the right hydro resources. Let us be able to maximize it. We have renewable resources. Let us be able to maximize it. We have thermal resources. Let us be able to maximize it. And now we are even planning to bring on board nuclear. That is also another resource that we have. Not everybody have the capacity to be able to make use of even nuclear. Not every country gets even the approval to be able to even start some feasibility studies when it comes to nuclear. So for us to be able to even get to this phase on our nuclear development, where about 7 to 10 years' time, we can be able to have a base load of power generation from nuclear. That means that we are taking advantage of what we can do for our benefit. Now, that mix, which is going to be a mixture of hydrothermal, renewable, and nuclear, gives us some sort of sustainability when it comes to our energy security. The reason being that today, it is the hydro that more or less we are all affected about. We have something to still depend on, which is the thermal. If the nuclear were to be on board, we would have also gotten something to depend on, because a force majeure will never announce itself. It goes to a period where Russia-Ukraine war affected, fuel supply. We use fuel when it comes to the thermal power generation. Now, regarding fuel, assuming we're depending solely on the light crude, which is the petrol or the diesel and coal, that one is more expensive. But we've been able to devise a new means where we now take advantage of our natural gas production. And so from our trouble, we'll make use of that to be able to power our thermal plants, which is quite cheaper to the liquid fuel. We are even trying to, as a country, to bring on board the Akosombo gas phase 2, so that it can be able to generate more power, more gas for us to be able to power our thermal plants. So the conversation is that there must be a mix, but the ratio of that mix is what we must be able to maximize. With time, the one that becomes more expensive must be dropped. And then that is why we are moving from the light crude towards the natural gas to be able to power the thermal plants. There must be an acceleration when it comes to our renewable sources, because if you look at the solar, it is barely about less than 3% of our energy mix. And if you look at it, our peak demand is always in the evening. And that is the evening where a whole lot of people are in their houses. That is for residential usage. And so if there were to be a system where our solar system can be accelerated across, in the evening, there wouldn't be a total demand on the thermals and coal. The one that is less cheaper would have been solar, and everybody could have enjoyed some stable power supply. I'm sure even with these outages that we are experiencing because of this force majeure, it wouldn't have affected our solar demand or our solar usage of power. And so the conversation must be that whoever that is in charge, as the policy makers and the government officials, there must be that conscious effort to have a generation mix that is suitable for Ghana to be able to support businesses and livelihood. That is the best way to go.
Emmanuel, in fact, Derek Emmanuel, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you, too.
He is a senior research and policy analyst with the Institute of Energy Studies, and clearly it looks like it's a situation that requires a holistic solution. So your suggestion on this is also very important. Do send it to us, and as we read it out, I'm sure government and all the key policy players are listening in to see which will be best for the country. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. We're shifting away from energy matters now to the disturbing report we got earlier today about an attack on a convoy which was led by some soldiers. So the latest is that some 21 individuals have been arrested as suspects, and the Joint Task Force of the Ghana Armed Forces has arrested 21 suspects. We'll bring that to you in a moment, but before that, let's bring you this.
It's your home. It strikes every
92.7 is the dial, 3FM is the station, and we are shifting our attention to some other stories now. The Joint Task Force of the Ghana Armed Forces has arrested 21 suspects in connection with the Monday morning ambush on a military escort convoy in Bazua in the Binduri District that resulted in the death of one passenger and the injury of 2 others. According to military sources, the ambush took place on the outskirts of Bazua, where a lone gunman reportedly opened fire sporadically on 2 civilian passenger buses. Following the attack, the military carried out an intense cordon and search operation, which led to the arrest of the suspects, who have since been handed over to the Upper East Regional Police Command to assist with further investigations. Let's now speak to Castro Senyala, who is our Upper East Regional correspondent and been following this for us. Castro, thank you for your time. To start with, you just updated us that 21 suspects have been arrested. Give us a background to what exactly happened. Is this a regular occurrence, the attack, I mean?
Right, so Martin, yes, it isn't a regular occurrence, but there have been instances where armed men, unidentified armed men, would usually block the road and try to attack the military convoy, which escorts civilian populations between Boko and Bolgatanga. And so it was one of such cases today where we understand from our military sources that the two buses were carrying civilians from the Boko township to Bolgatanga. When they got out of the town of Bazua on the outskirts, we understand that the gunmen who lead ambush opened fire sporadically. I understand from military sources that it was a lone shooter who carried out the attack. But then the understanding was that even though the lone person fired towards the buses, there could have been others behind him, and so the military quickly responded, and that was what led to the cordon and search operation, which has resulted in the arrest of these 21 suspects, who we understand have been handed over to the Bolgatanga Regional Police, the Upper East Regional Police headquarters in Bolgatanga for further probe and subsequent arrests.
Yeah, Castro, we know that issues of Boko have largely been chieftaincy related, but then when you come to the roads, every now and then you hear reports of such attacks where a bus in motion or passenger buses are attacked, or sometimes even private vehicles. Can you say that this was probably one of those kinds of attacks where, for instance, after the shooting, the bus would have stopped and then the robbery would have taken place, but this time around there was a military escort? And how often have we seen military escort public or passenger vehicles?
Martin, right, you rightly said, the armed forces, by extension the Joint Task Force, which primarily takes care of ensuring peace and serenity in Boko and in the regional areas, conducts escorts for those in the inner part of the Boko township. It is a presidential directive that came in early last year when President John Jinapor came into office. He particularly directed that the Ghana Armed Forces and other security agencies should work closely to provide escorts for civilian populations that live within Boko Township or Boko general area. The situation is that there are some civilian populations within the Boko general area who are unable to go through to Boko without military escorts. And so what the military does is to periodically, in fact, it's been a standardized practice where maybe twice a week, 3 times a week, they escort people into Boko and pick another set of civilians and bring them out of Boko to Bolgatanga, where they, can now continue with their journeys to other areas of the country or the region. And so it was basically something like this where the attack happened. And usually we don't hear of, people getting robbed after the attacks. It appears that these attackers would usually spray bullets into the moving vehicles, and then they'll simply get away on motorbikes, sometimes riding into the bushes and the forests nearby, making getting or apprehending them very difficult. And so this is something they do as military to ensure that the civilian population who travel between Boko and Bolgatanga, especially those who are in that part of the Boko township where they can't cross to Bolgatanga, are taken to Bolgatanga and taken back from Bolgatanga to Boko, as an arranged escort from the military.
Right. Anyway, so before we let you go, what's the current situation in the area, and what else are we to expect in terms of investigations?
Yeah, so I've been in close touch with the military hierarchy in the region and that of the police hierarchy in the region, and they all tell me that they see this as a serious offense because to attack a security team performing their duties, their legal duties means they need to take actions themselves, and so they have swiftly done that, and that is why they began by ensuring that they arrested a lot of people, suspects who are now being screened. And what I also understand is that when the attack happened on the bus, it triggered some reprisal attacks within certain locations within the Boko general area, but then the security agencies were able to quickly move in, and that situation has since been taken care of. But I understand that there were also excesses there where we understand some other people too were injured and have since been taken to the President Hospital in Boko, where they are currently being attended to by the medics there. The other thing too is that with the suspects now in police custody, they will begin to screen them, and once they get full, depending on the information they get from those that they've arrested, they can proceed with whatever action they need to do.
Thank you very much, Castro Senyala, for that report. And he is our Upper East Regional correspondent, updating us on the unfortunate incident that happened earlier today where a passenger bus was shot at, and we are told that one person has died, 2 are critically injured, and the armed forces that were escorting the bus immediately cordoned off the place to search. So far, 21 individuals have been picked up and handed over to the Upper East Regional Police Command to investigate the unfortunate incident, which has left one person dead. We'll update you subsequently when we get further information regarding this issue. And away from that, though, this time around to issues of the minerals that we have as a country, the Minerals Commission has defended the decision by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Buah, to revoke the mining rights of Akango, Salman, and nkroful mining of Adamus Resources Limited. According to the Commission, management of Adamus Minerals unlawfully transferred portions of its mining rights to third parties. The Commission further disclosed that it will, without delay, initiate legal proceedings against the directors of Adamus Resources Limited. Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, Isaac Tando, made these remarks during a press conference in Accra. I will bring that insert to you to hear exactly what his words are about why they took that decision. And it also comes on the back of similar concerns being raised by some individuals in the mining sector about what they make of how this particular kind of issue can be properly resolved. Let's now go to the phone lines and speak to Abdul Bana, who is the Secretary of the Ghana Mine Workers Union. Mr. Bana, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
We follow very closely the decision by government to revoke the licenses of a number of, I don't know whether they are affiliates or sub-companies that work with Adamus Resources, but government has revoked some of these licenses. As a union, what do you make of this development?
Well, it is quite shocking because it does appear to us that too many times this current government is making some incursions that raises a number of eyebrows. We are not too sure where they are actually headed in terms of some of the decisions they're making. The issue of Adamus comes to us as a surprise because some of the allegations that have been leveled against them, I'm unable to confirm. But as a matter of general principle, the Minerals and Mining Act is very clear. Where a leaseholder or a holder of a mineral right, commits an offense or there's an infraction of one sort or the other, the law allows for some remedies. You are required to remedy the situation within a certain time frame. It's usually within 120 days you are required to remedy. And that is essentially factoring in the investments that the business owner would have made and implications of, an abrupt shutdown of the operations, recognizing the implications on workers, the community, and, the nation in general. And so our expectation would have been that adamus will be given an opportunity to remedy whatever infractions that they may have committed. And if within the notice period they are unable to remedy, the law provides for what next you should do, which would include the termination of the mining lease. But the sudden decision or the abrupt, stoppage of operations is quite worrying, and it doesn't send the right signal to the investor community. I may not have had the full details or the full facts as far as the adamus issue is concerned, but assessing the situation and based on the general guidance around how investments in the mining industry is done and how, infractions or violations are remedied. And these violations, it's not akin to adamus alone. There are quite a number of multinational corporations within the industry that once a while gets involved in one infraction or the other. And the Minerals Commission does not treat, such multinationals, with an iron fist. And
so if I get what you're saying,
look, this is what you have done. Go ahead and remedy it within a certain time frame. If you are unable to do it, then this is the sanction that will matter out to you.
But you are uncertain whether that step has been taken by government already, right?
Yes, I'm uncertain if government has taken that step. But if they had, I'm sure it would have been in the public domain. Because if you look at the nature of the allegations, my expectation would have been that this would be something that is out there, and so people could relate, But whatever the case is, this is an investment. And so, taking such abrupt or hasty decisions and its implications on all the other stakeholders could be quite overbearing. And that's why, as a union, as it stands now, workers are stranded. Where do they go next? Because the holder of the mining lease is technically no longer the holder of the lease. And so what happens to the workers? Who is their employer? Who's going to pay their paychecks for this month? What's going to happen next? And these are uncertainties that could have been averted if the Minerals Commission probably had handled issues a bit more properly.
And as it stands, that's the current decision which the minister has more or less endorsed. What's the way forward, especially for your members, the union members, like you just alluded to? This probably was quite impromptu. Are you looking at raising these issues with maybe the Minerals Commission or government for that matter?
No, obviously workers will be seeking answers from the Minerals Commission and by extension the government. We should all recognize that there are stakeholders playing within the ecosystem. And so whatever decisions we take have implications on others. And so the workers will be asking questions from the government and demanding certain answers from the government. Because at the end of the day, we haven't done anything wrong. Granted that the leaseholder did something wrong, it doesn't mean that our contractual obligations to the employment relationship, should be truncated without any clear direction on the way forward. And
can you give us an idea the numbers that are likely to be affected by this decision?
Well, directly, I know adamus has an employee strength of about 700 directly, and indirectly, in the thousands. And so the impact would be quite severe. And that is why these things ought to be, handled with a bit of caution so that we do not firefight at the end of the day.
Right. Well, in the coming days, we'll see what the next line of action will be, or what kind of responses you'll be getting when you do raise it with the Minerals Commission. Thank you for speaking to us this evening.
Thank you.
That is Abdul Mumin Bana, who is General Secretary, Ghana Mine Workers Union, giving us their perspective to the decision by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, who has defended and more or less endorsed the decision of the Minerals Commission to revoke the mining rights and licenses of 3 institutions that work with adamus resources, that is Akango, Salman, and nkroful mines. They all belong to or work under the Adamus Resources Limited. And it looks as though the impact will go beyond just the revocation of licenses. Staff will be affected, and like the Ghana Mine Workers Union have indicated, the way this particular issue has gone is likely to have adverse effect on staff. But we'll update you when we get different aspects of further information about it. Turning our attention to education now, and the Minister for Education, Haruna Idrisu, has directed the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC, to immediately withdraw its letters which relate to post-retirement contracts of academic senior members in public universities. The statement, the directive follows a meeting between the Minister for Education and the leadership of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG. I will bring you excerpts of that statement in a moment. And in another news this evening, over 80 foreign nationals believed to be Nigerians have allegedly been dumped. Well, I think the right expression would be duped in part of the Akachi North District of the Volta region following their arrest from the streets of Kumasi. Well, if you want details of that story, you might want to go to our website, streetnews.com, and you'll find details of this and many more stories there as well. In the meantime, though, it's time for sports. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on CFM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofo. The Confederations of African Football have officially awarded the nation Ghana rights to host the Total Energies CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, which will take place in 2027. CAF covered the decision in a letter addressed to the General Secretary, Prosper Harrison Addo. And that letter stated that the Ghana have been given the official rights to host the competition. Remember that the last time that Ghana hosted the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations was back in 1999, when the Black Satellites went all the way to win the competition. The 2027 Under-20 AFCON would also coincide with Ghana's celebration. That's for 70th anniversary celebrations, and so it does promise to be a year of huge things for Ghana as well as they host the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. CAF also went on to say that they would work with the Ghana Football Association to ensure that a local organizing committee is put in place in the next few months to ensure that the tournament is a massive success. But before we go, Ashanti Gold 04 have been promoted to the Ghana Premier League after beating Sky FC 4-1 over the weekend. Ashanti Gold 04 were formerly Bekwai Heroes and have no relation to the former Ashanti Gold. My colleague Bilishen provides clarity in the following report.
The Ashanti Gold 04 have secured a place in the Ghana Premier League for the first time in their history after they defeated Sky FC 4-1 in the Division 1 Zone 2 game. And as I mentioned, it's their first time going to play in the Ghana Premier League. But a lot of confusion has been coming up in social media because Ashanti Gold 04's colours and the logo looks very similar to that of Ashanti Gold SC. Now here's some background. First off, Ashanti Gold 04 is not in any way related to Ashanti Gold SC. Now, Ashanti Gold SC, a team that has won 4 Ghana Premier League titles in the past, have been indefinitely suspended from any GFA-related activities. That was confirmed at a Congress at KNUST back in 2023 around July. Now, in 2024, around August, fans of Ashanti Gold SC actually came to Pram Pram before Congress has started to plead with the GFA to reverse that decision of suspending Ashanti Gold SC forever. That has still not happened. The GFA has not reversed the suspension. Why have they even suspended them in the first place? Now, Ashanti Gold SC was first demoted to the Division 2 League after some allegations of match manipulation investigation was made, and they were found to be guilty, with some members of the club found to be guilty, and so they were demoted to Division 2. But they were still engaging with part of the leadership of the club. I'm talking about Kweku Frimpong and also Emmanuel Frimpong, who are part of the leadership of Ashanti Gold SC. And so the GFA deemed it fit to actually suspend them automatically and for a very long period where they've not even decided if they are going to lift that suspension or not. And so as it stands, Ashanti Gold SC does not exist. Now, Essence Energy, which happens to be the owners of Bekwai Heroes, decided to rebrand from Bekwai Heroes back in middle 2025 to Ashanti Gold 04. And so that rebranding was done through the GFA. It was approved, and then that was done. And then for the 2025-26 season, Bekwai Heroes, now Ashanti Gold 04, managed to beat a lot of clubs to actually secure a place in the Ghana Premier League.
And so that was the explanation there by my colleague Billy Shan. You can get more details and more stories on our social media handles at 3 Sports GH. My name is Oreko Ampofo, and that's how we wrap up Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7.